We are live. What is up, wrestling fans? I am Doug.
And I am Kevin. And that is Doug.
I am back.
That is Doug. He is back.
For the past couple of weeks, I've been getting home from work about this time or walking in from work, sitting down, opening up my laptop, and continuing to work. But so far, so good tonight. I've done my work earlier today, and we'll see where that leaves us. But, it sounds like you may be pulled away tonight, Kevin.
Well, it's good that you've been coming home and going to work and instead of watching the Two Bros Wrestling Show, because otherwise you'd have just heard me trashing you these last couple of weeks in your absence. So maybe it's good you didn't hear any of that.
That's cool, because wrestling, Two Bros or otherwise, I have not seen in about 2 weeks. So, as far as I know, Stephanie McMahon may be the World Heavyweight Champion, so I'm hoping that you can bring me back up to date and let me know what's going on in the world of wrestling.
I will say we have actually had a few folks offer to step in and be the other bro. Like, we've got applications coming in, so you got to pull it together, Hager.
Everyone is replaceable, Kevin.
So I hear. Doug, you want to get caught up, you say?
Could you please catch me up? Because I have no idea what's going on in the world of wrestling. Is that me or you? It's me.
All right. So, time for the news. That was the opening bell. Let's catch Doug up on some of the things that he has missed in the world of professional wrestling.
Like the opening bell banner. There it is.
See, you remember how to do this?
I don't know. It's still early in the show.
Former WWE producer and former Impact Wrestling star Sarah Stock was arrested and charged with aggravated battery, resisting law enforcement, disorderly conduct, and public intoxication this week. So, see, Doug, some people are having worse weeks than you.
So far. It's early in the week.
That's true. Stock was a backstage producer for WWE. She came to work at the Performance Center in 2015, producing backstage. And she was among those that was originally furloughed in April, but didn't get let go until last month. She was officially released last month. But fans out there may know her more from her wrestling career, because she was formerly Dark Angel in CMLL and AAA in Mexico. And then she wrestled for a brief time in Impact as Sarita. And people may remember her because she teamed with current WWE star Zelina Vega, who at that time was going by the name of Rosita. And honestly, one of the reasons I put this on my radar as a story, one, obviously the news about her arrest and things makes it a top story. But I honestly had forgotten all about Zelina Vega actually being in Impact Wrestling. I'm reading the headline and I'm reading the story. I'm like, wait a minute. Zelina was in Impact, and then now I remember she was Rosita, and her tag team partner Sarita. They were actually the tag champs. They each held the women's knockout championship there for a little while in Impact. So anyway, tough times for Zelina's former tag partner. New Japan Pro Wrestling, Doug, they announced that they are going to be having this year the Best of Super Juniors 27, as well as the World Tag Team, the World Tag League 2020 tournaments concurrently. Obviously, this is, as anyone may be guessing, because of coronavirus, because originally each year we have the Super Juniors take place back in May. Of course, this year it didn't happen because of the pandemic. So now their solution is, rather than just skipping it this year, is holding both the Tag League and the Super Junior tournament concurrently. Both of those will start on November the 15th. And then what they will do after that is they will alternate. One night will be the Super Juniors tournament. The next night will be the World Tag Team tournament, or the Tag League tournament. The finals of both, though, will happen on the same night, on December 11th of this year. So that way they get both tournaments in 2020. After exiting from WWE, Doug, EC3 has really been controlling his narrative. Most of us out there are aware that he has been popping up on Impact. Well, apparently now he's moving on to Ring of Honor as well. There was some hints dropped at the last episode of Ring of Honor where it's very obviously EC3 in a sort of a very mysterious, vignette similar to the ones he's been doing on Impact. So he's definitely deciding that he is leaving his very underwhelming WWE run by getting in as many promotions as possible and apparently running a similar version of the same character to try to get himself over. So kudos to EC3 for going out there and conquering what's left of the wrestling world during this pandemic. Doug, big news out of Japan, other than just the tournaments I mentioned earlier, I know I'm going to mangle his last name, but the CEO and president of New Japan Pro Wrestling, Harold Meij. I don't know if that's Meha. I'm not sure how that's pronounced, but the president and CEO, we'll just call him Harold. How about that?
Harry. Let's call him Harry. Let's just get familiar with him.
We can now because he no longer holds that CEO position. He was relieved of his duties. And one of the bigger talking points about that is the fact that apparently he was not that popular backstage with the boys. He is definitely more on the business side. And supposedly, according to some anyway, he had alienated many of the English-speaking talent as well as the American contacts. In fact, the president of New Japan America is the one who is being tabbed to take over for him. Now, for American fans, what this might mean is a better chance for a collaboration in the future between AEW, who at one point was open to such, but apparently Cody and the Bucks and those that particularly that worked closely with Harold over there in New Japan. Pretty much, yes. Yeah. Apparently now, though, that might not be an issue, and so we may see some crossover. In fact, this past week on AEW during their Chris Jericho 30 celebration, there was a video message sent from Hiroshi Tanahashi, and they spoke of him, in glowing terms when they were, explaining to American audiences who he was. So that could be a taste. That might be a byproduct of what happened in New Japan behind the scenes. And I, for one, and I know you as a big New Japan fan, Doug, would very much welcome that alliance.
Very much, because it's only a matter of time then before New Japan, ROH, and AEW unify and have some sort of very loose alliance to start sharing talent and bring things forward. So that's exciting news for me.
That would be very exciting news for the whole wrestling world, like a true number two that would almost rival the size of WWE if all those organizations could come together in some sort of alliance.
Yes.
And then the last news item I have, Doug, before we get to what is a special show tonight, focused on the WWE draft, I will mention if you didn't see NXT this week, or for those of you that didn't see NXT this week, it was live, so this was captured on camera, but NXT relative newcomer to the American NXT brand, Ridge Holland, was involved in a really freak accident when he attempted to catch Oney Lorcan on the outside. Oney went for a dive, and what happened when Ridge caught him, his right leg buckled under the weight, and he had to be stretchered out. And on Thursday, he had what it turned out was his left leg and knee patella were both dislocated, had a rupture of his tendon on his right leg, dislocated knee, was put into place on the spot, and the ankle was relocated in the emergency room, but the tendon and stuff required surgery. So he just got out of he was definitely a guy that the company is high on, and he was featured at the last takeover at the very end in the ending angle of the show, throwing Adam Cole, of all people, a true headliner, into the ring after what appeared to be an attack. So obviously there were big things planned for Mr. Holland, and so we are sad to report that, at least for the time being, those are going to have to be on hold because of the pretty gruesome looking injury that took place this past week on television. So best wishes, get well soon, and hopefully you get right back into that program when you come back, and Adam Cole's still around for you to have that program with. But Doug, that is the news. You are caught up for the week.
Wow, that's so a lot has happened while I've been gone.
A lot has happened, my friend. A lot has happened.
Wow. And that's unfortunate about Ridge Holland, because everything I've read about Holland is he is the guy. I haven't seen NXT or even AEW or the last two pay-per-views yet. I've got a lot of wrestling. Yeah, I have not seen any wrestling in the past couple of weeks. I've not seen anything in the past couple of weeks. But that's unfortunate because Holland was the guy, pegged as the guy, like, the Roman Reigns of NXT. So that's rough for him.
It's rough, and it kind of reminds me of just, how the NXT brand itself has had some hardships lately, because they were getting ready to give Karrion Kross the ball to run with, which he had obviously earned and was a hot character, and everyone was real excited to see what he did with that. And then his injury took him off TV and had to relinquish that belt. And of course, they had some recent folks leave them in the last month or two. Keith Lee, Matt Riddle, some of the bigger stars, and so now I guess the plan was probably to move Ridge into that main event scene. And now he's gone. So who knows? The Undisputed Era may, out of necessity, have to be hanging around. I know it's been rumored forever now that they were going to get the move to Raw or SmackDown, but they may need Adam Cole to fill in. I know the Undisputed Era was in the main event of the last pay-per-view, and they may pick a different member to do the same for the next takeover, because right now the injury bug is biting the NXT folks.
And speaking of that, during this past week, I had time to sit down for 5 minutes, shove some food in my face at my desk at work, and read some things on Wrestle Talk and What Culture. And I guess that Finn Balor received a legitimate broken jaw in a couple of places, but at least it's not going to take him out of action. I guess that was the last pay-per-view that you had to cover by yourself. Thank you very much for that, brother. Appreciate you. Appreciate you doing the heavy lifting while I'm out doing some unfun heavy lifting. But
always happy to watch wrestling for a friend.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. You have no idea how much. But
that main event, Doug. I know you say you have some things to get caught up on. But,
I absolutely do.
As we mentioned last week, and folks, if you didn't catch last week's review of NXT Takeover, feel free to pause what you're watching here now and go back and watch that. To get an idea of the matches, the contest, and what you need to see, because that main event was one of the matches that we definitely recommended as a must-see. And Doug, you will like it. It is hard-hitting. It did not surprise me to find out that both men actually sustained legit injuries in that contest, because it was not a high-flying contest. It was a ground and pound, strike-based, very UFC feeling, while still having the tones of professional wrestling. They were stiff with each other. So, definitely get well to Finn too, but good for NXT, especially considering all their other injuries, that apparently it's not going to require any time away from the brand.
Right. So that's good, because I was thinking yet another. It almost seems like that NXT belt is cursed at this point. Everybody who touches it either has to drop it quickly or drop it because of an injury as of late. So I'm happy to hear that Finn retained, but will not be having any time off for his broken jaw. I guess it's
the broken jaw is what I understand. Yeah, I know. It looked pretty nasty when you saw the X-rays. Just how out of place it was. Like, wow. And he finished the match.
Right. Well, of course, he also dislocated his whatever before with Seth Rollins to win the first Universal title, and of course finished the match, because that's just the mentality of some of those guys.
Small dude, but tough as nails.
Yep. So what do we have? What do we have on? If that's the news, what do we have on tap for the main event?
Folks, this is the first of two very special episodes of the Two Bros Wrestling Show. Obviously, we are in the midst of draft season in World Wrestling Entertainment. The WWE draft is taking place for the first time since last year, and part one took place on Friday night, and part two will take place tomorrow night on Raw. So for the next 2 weeks, we're going to be having, for our main event, draft-centric discussion. Tonight, what we're going to do is talk a little bit about those folks that were drafted on Friday Night SmackDown, what we liked, what we didn't like, and then make some predictions based on that as to what we think still to come on Raw. Doug, I know obviously you probably did not get a chance to see SmackDown. But
fortunately, CBS Sports has this nice draft results day one list up on their website, so I can at least talk. I don't know, somewhat informed as well.
You're familiar with all this talent. If you wanted to read through before we do the discussion part, if you just want to read through the list of who went where.
Wait, Lars Sullivan is back? When did that happen?
You have missed a lot. They did pack Friday Night SmackDown with a lot of angles and changes based around the draft. Honestly, the Lars thing surprised the heck out of me, because I thought he was, because of some of his backstage issues, I thought he was just gone. I didn't know that he had another chance to be given.
Right. okay, so I just hopped over here. I pulled it up right before the show started, right before we went live, so I could have something to talk about, and have a bit of a guide. But I had not actually scrolled down to see because I've got draft results and then team splits. Lars, what?
Yeah. with hair, which he somehow is even uglier with hair than he was bald.
Ugly with hair. That's the title of my autobiography, I believe.
Well, folks, we don't, if there's any draft picks or any things that you particularly liked or didn't like about the draft, feel free to join in this discussion as we go over some of these. But Doug, for me, and you're looking at the list instead of going,
sure,
pick by pick. If you don't want to do that, let's just maybe talk about some of the bigger news stories coming out of that draft. In my mind, the big move when you're looking at it is twofold. The move of Seth Rollins to Raw, and then the split up of the New Day, which is essentially the two main headlines coming out. And let's take each of them separately. The idea of Seth Rollins moving to SmackDown from Raw. What do you think about that?
So I'm looking at this here. Oh, and I've got. Oh, hold on. Carter's wants me to buy stuff. Hold on. Let me close this pop up. I just lost my entire list here. Lock, close. Okay, there we go. All right. So I'm looking at this list here. So Seth Rollins from Raw to SmackDown, right? But yeah. I also see that Ray and Dominic Mysterio both go from Raw to SmackDown. Is Murphy going to Smack? And Murphy's on. Are you kidding me? Are they just copy pasting? What is this? Just a copy paste? Let's just move this feud from Raw to SmackDown. Is that what's happening here? I mean, I haven't been watching wrestling for 2 weeks, but
so there are things I like and things I don't like about the move. Seth is one of those main event level stars that is rare in that he has spent almost the entirety of his whole career on one brand. Mm-hmm. This isn't Big Show or AJ Styles who switched brands yet again in all this, where you go back and forth so often. He is just synonymous with the Raw brand. So the fact that he was going to move to SmackDown, and I'm thinking, okay, Reigns is over there, so eventually, you got that. I'm like, this is great. And so that part would have gone into the positive column for me. Is like, I like that. And then they go and follow up by like, all right, now you're just moving the feud to now I'm that took it from an A+ move to like a B+ move. Like eventually it's going to be good to have him on there because as you probably feel like I do, is that SmackDown is kind of lacking in that top level talent. It's not that they're lacking in talent. There's plenty of talent on this roster, but all the bigger stars are on Raw. So they really needed to shuffle a few of those guys SmackDown way. Seth is a home run for that. Just not so sure about moving an entire feud over there, particularly when that would have been a great way to have a natural end to it since it's already ran its course anyway. Just separate them. And that way it's over, but they didn't go that way.
Absolutely. I mean, just looking at the list, if you just look at Seth Rollins alone to SmackDown, that I think is a great move because eventually you're going to have Reigns versus Rollins. I think that's inevitable. We have the tribal chief who's going to hold on to that belt for quite a long time and probably build a stable around the whole tribal chief gimmick as he beats down people and defeats them and then brings them into his fold and creates his own stable that way. But
I think we actually have a comment to that end, actually. I think Scott's thinking along the lines of what you're thinking.
Dude, I think it's just a matter of time, Scott, man. I think it starts with because I have read and I haven't watched wrestling, but I have read that I guess is it Jimmy? Which one? It gets another shot at but there's a stipulation there will be repercussions at this I Quit with Hell in a Cell, and I think that just starts him building his own stable where we get the Usos, everybody Roman defeats. In defeat, they concede to him being the tribal chief and therefore join his stable.
Join the tribe.
Yeah, join the tribe. Exactly.
I think what better place to start with than with family, right?
Exactly. Oos. Come on, Oos. Join the tribe, But on paper alone, Rollins is great. But then when I scroll on down through here and I see that Ray and Dominic both and Murphy are all going to SmackDown. They've just, Control V, Control C on this whole feud. Yeah, they
I
moved it from.
definitely see separating that Mysterio family drama from Seth Rollins, and that would have been fantastic to finally bring that to an end. I could see leaving Murphy around since he's apparently got this thing starting with Aaliyah, and keep them involved if you want, and then evolve his character now that he won't be under Seth's shadow, and having them on separate brands would have helped in that regard too, because I think he really at this point needs to get over on his own. And then they sort of undermined the overall move by moving everybody along.
I agree with that because I mean Rollins versus Reign would eventually manifested on SmackDown, but now I think there's just it just drags on the Monday Night Messiah now becomes like the Friday Night Friar. I don't know what he is on Friday. I don't know what he becomes then.
Nickname to be this. Hey, we agree with you there, Scott. Exactly. We're kind of tired of that feud too.
I'm right there. Yeah, we were both right there with you, brother. Yeah, I mean that needs to end, and I think Kevin had a great point earlier when he said that there's a logical conclusion when you start drafting and breaking things up like that. But then you've just moved the entire feud from one night to another. You've got all the players there. It continues.
So, Doug, what do you think about that other big news as far as the breakup of the New Day? Just on paper, without some of the other results that happened, because that made it a little odd. We can get into that here in a minute.
Okay.
The idea of Big E being on his own, because Big E was drafted to SmackDown, and Kofi and Kofi Woods, they went to Raw.
So here are my thoughts on that. I think that first of all, WWE needs to unify their tag team titles, and I think they do that with the New Day. Then the New Day can bounce back and forth just like the WWE the women's tag team titles. So New Day doesn't exactly break up, but they give Big E a run as a New Day singles competitor on SmackDown, while New Day tag team WWE tag team champions, once they unify them, because I think they should do that, and hopefully they will do that. They can bounce back and forth and even just bounce around just like the women's tag team and defend those on either brand, because I think they're a little short on tag teams overall right now. So I think for that it's good, but although I've got to say it's stupid, just straight up wrong that the Hurt Business all gets drafted back to Raw. But for some reason, they didn't draft the entirety of the New Day. There's some serious plot holes in this logic.
It very much is plot holes with this whole move. There was a lot about this particular move that kind of defied logical sense, in that both Woods and Kofi have been injured for so long, and then they both just very coincidentally show up on draft night.
Yeah.
And then just so coincidentally win the SmackDown Tag Team Championships, and then just so coincidentally get moved apart from Big E, who has been on a singles run for the last couple months anyway. So all of those coincidences happening together really defied logic as far as the storytelling part of it goes. It kind of got eye rolling. I'm fine for breaking up, tag teams if there's a real reason behind it. I think that Big E has shown that he is believable as a singles competitor and definitely charismatic enough to be a singles competitor. A lot of times in the past with the draft, they've used that to break up tag teams that are just two men, and and like in the case of the Dudleys, if you recall, or the Hardys, that was a lot less palatable than having three guys and just drifting one of them off. So I was fine with it if that were the extent of it. But then you have all the coincidences I just mentioned, and the fact that you move them while also having them win the belts. That part gets convoluted and kind of dumb, honestly. In drafts past, we've seen the Intercontinental title move from one brand to the other, the U.S. title. That's one thing. Even the Universal Champion and the WWE Champion, because listen to the names of those titles. But when you have the Raw Tag Team Champions and the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, and now the SmackDown Tag Team Champions are on Raw, that just gets dumb. So what are you going to do? You're either going to go the route that you suggested, you're going to change the name of the belt or you're going to have the other team, the other set of champions move to the other show. But ideally, I agree with you. WWE has never been a huge federation when it comes to tag team wrestlers. It's always been known even in the territory days as a singles territory, that if you had two guys that you can make money off of, why would you put them together when you could have them apart? That's always been Vince's thing. So with the number of tag teams that WWE has, it would make a lot more sense to have the tag team champions of WWE and that be it. So hopefully that's the resolution to this. But right now, halfway through the draft, you're going to have the SmackDown Tag Team Champions on Raw.
And that creates a little. I think that creates a little bit of buzz for a little while. Like, ooh, the tag team, the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, SmackDown champions are now on Raw. What's SmackDown going to do? Yeah, but I mean, I think that's short-sighted booking in all this, and I think WWE is really bad about hotshot, short-sighted booking to get a ratings pop and really not have a follow through. But that's been my complaint for WWE for years. But I mean, just holes in the logic. Like, why did Raw take the entirety of the Hurt Business?
Yeah, how's that possible?
Wake up the New Day and just only take Kofi and Xavier Woods. I mean, what they got against Big E? I mean, come on, the dude's awesome.
And Big E on Friday night had one of the best matches I think I've ever seen him have. His match with Sheamus as a hardcore contest was on par with the parking lot brawl we saw on AEW in this past month. That's how brutal it was. Both men on WWE television, which doesn't happen, both men were bleeding profusely, and it was brutal. It definitely showed that he can be a serious act. It doesn't all have to be just jokes and pancakes, but and physicality wise, he is dough as nails. Twice I've used that analogy on nails, by the way. So mark that down.
I like your jokes and pancakes. I like that. I'm going to use that in my everyday life from now on. Jokes and pancakes.
Certainly, it's a less of a news story than the New Day splitting up. But Doug, there was another tag team that was fractured based on not one of the draft.
Is it the Lucha House Party where Kalisto goes to SmackDown? I don't even know where Lucha House Party is. Are they SmackDown or are they Raw?
They are Raw, and that's actually not the one I'm referring to.
Okay, hold on, wait. I see Banks has gone to Raw. Banks is on SmackDown.
Yep.
Let's see. Is Bianca Belair? And I don't know about this. Is Bianca Belair actually part of Riot Squad, or is she just like a honorary member of Riot Squad? I'm a little bit confused about that, and I'm not caught up on the product right now. I'm about 2 weeks out of sync, so.
Yeah, I think she just comes about on one occasion.
Wait a minute, Otis.
There we go. Now you've hit it. Now you've hit on what I was talking about.
Otis alone was drafted to.
So what happened is that none of this happened Friday night.
Okay.
They had a supplemental draft on Saturday that we did not know about. They didn't really say anything about it. We thought night one was SmackDown, night two would be Raw. But they had a supplemental draft on Talking Smack on Saturday morning. Okay. And a few minor moves like Gulak changed brands and Humberto Carrillo, I believe, changed brands. But Otis was basically they used the opportunity to break up Heavy Machinery. And, that's one that, as far as what I like and don't like about it, honestly, the breaking up of Heavy Machinery isn't great. It's not like they're a top tier tag team or anything, but I think at this point in their careers, they're certainly better together. And Otis is likable. I mean, I think the fans really got into his act pre-WrestleMania, and the whole Mandy storyline was cute for a wrestling, storyline of that type. But it's growing a little stale, and that whole, giving him the Money in the Bank contract, they particularly that has gone nowhere. It seems like a wasted opportunity, and I believe that they might still be able to keep, Otis in the shuffle a little bit. Eventually, they'll have to do something with that. But I think, for more than anything, this spells bad things for Tucker, because Otis was the one in that team with the personality, and now Tucker is a big guy who hasn't shown personality, going to the overly crowded show, the 3-hour show as it is. If he gets on TV at all, dude's going to be used as enhancement talent, don't you think?
Yeah, I think Tucker was just Marty Jannetty in all this, so that's unfortunate for Tucker.
And that's why I think that probably was a bad move. we've talked the big news and some of the surprises. Are there any moves, Doug, that you see on that you think should have been different?
So looking at this list, I do see that Kalisto alone has been drafted to SmackDown, and then that where the rest of the Lucha House Party, Lince Dorado and Grand Metalik are undrafted. See, Lars Sullivan returned to SmackDown, but will be added to Raw's draft pool of superstars. Let's see, New Day, Heavy Machinery split up. Wait a minute, is Becky Lynch on here? Becky Lynch is okay, not currently competing. Jimmy
superstars.
Sonya Deville no longer under WWE contract in storyline. Edge and Jinder Mahal. Is Jinder Mahal injured? Didn't he just come back?
That I thought he came back, and but then he had 2 matches and was gone again. So I wasn't sure if they just didn't know what to do with him or if he was injured. But
according to CBS Sports.com, Edge and Jinder Mahal are both injured. Samoa Joe currently on the Raw commentary team. Mojo Rawley's not competed since June 15, 2020. Forgotten Sons not competed since May 2020. Bo Dallas has not competed. So I've heard talk that Bo Dallas may be returning back to NXT with a new gimmick. So, and then it has part-time and likely ineligible Big Show, John Cena, Bill Goldberg, Ronda Rousey, and The Undertaker. So these are under notable unlisted superstars. So let me roll back up here. Superstar draft eligible on October. So
for me, the 2 things that stood out that happened that drafts that happened that I think shouldn't have. The Mysterios should have stayed put on Raw.
Right.
Mysterios and Murphy would have stayed put on Raw. They could have continued that part of the angle and then just got Seth and the Mysterios away from each other. Personally, I was disappointed to see a couple of, I was disappointed to see Ricochet get drafted to Raw because for as talented as he is, the U.S. title run he had seems like 1,000 years ago at this point. He definitely got the rug pulled out from under his push. I think as much as anybody who has already been drafted that could have used a fresh start on a different show, seeing Ricochet move to the blue brand, I think would have been good for him.
Yeah, so I'm seeing that Miz and Morrison, aren't they in like some sort of legal dispute storyline with Otis? Because I see where they're drafted to Raw.
They are drafted to Raw.
And Otis is on SmackDown, but not Murphy, but Tucker went to SmackDown, or from SmackDown to Raw. I don't know. I see AJ goes back to Monday nights. Yeah.
So here's things that I liked and didn't like about that draft's first half. Overall, this was a chance to reset characters and feuds, but there were so many moves where like you're just reading and realizing that, okay, wait a minute, aren't they doing you could have reset feuds. You had too many instances where a wrestler's fictional rival just coincidentally happened to move with them so that storyline could continue or not. That I didn't care for. I did like, though, that right off the bat, they established that Drew and Roman were staying on their brands and that their championships will be staying with them. Both of those guys, why would you mess with a good thing? So, take that off the table right away as to is one show going to have both champions and all that. I think that part always gets dumb. So that was good. I didn't like the AJ move just because AJ's been moved around so often. I actually forgot which brand he was even supposed to be on. So that there was
AJ became a Big Show in that aspect of, where you're not, Big Show has had so many heel face turns and AJ's bounced back and forth between Raw and SmackDown so many times. It's kind of hard to tell where he is in the brands.
So I know we talked New Day and Seth and Sasha and some of the big moves. Doug, looking through that list, is there anybody that has been drafted? Not what we think is going to happen tomorrow night, but is there one that you see there as sort of below the radar? I know we're in political season here, so let's just say looking down ballot at the council races and not the presidential. Is there any move there that you really like that you could think of as a stealth move that was a really good one? Because I got one.
I'm just looking through here, because I'm not sure. Like going back to the Riot Squad before, is Bianca Belair an actual member of the Riot Squad, or was she just
No,
like a fill-in member? Is the Riot Squad still just Ruby Riot and the blonde girl that I can't think of right now? Oh my
Liv
goodness!
Morgan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then that's the All of Retribution. So Mustafa Ali is Retribution's leader now. So does Retribution get drafted as a group?
They weren't even mentioned as being eligible, even though that's where the storyline part of that really gets a mess. But you danced around actually what I think is the stealth pick of this, at least night one.
Right.
That is Bianca Belair. You and I know her, and many watching will know her probably better from her run in NXT. She hasn't done a lot
of NXT.
Yeah, I mean, she gets brought on Raw, and I know you mentioned she wrestled with the Riot Squad, but that was a six woman tag contest, right? Once, like. How many times have you actually seen her wrestle on Raw? 3 times, maybe at the most.
Right.
I mean, here is this person who we know has all this talent, the talking ability, the strength that like you've not seen very much in the women's division, as well as just the legit ground and pounder too, and acrobatic. She debuted on Raw, and then she pretty much just disappeared for long stretches at a time. There'd be 3 or 4 weeks between appearances on the show. So I think. Despite that, the fact I like the recent vignettes they've started in the last few weeks, which are really Mr. Perfect-like. If you've not seen them yet, Doug, it's very much Mr. Perfect-like, and it's Bianca competing and doing these things against men and women, different athletic contests where she just completely shows them all up. So that part I liked, is if they were starting to do something with that character other than just having her occasionally show up. But I think that a complete reset for her on the less crowded brand, the lesser watched brand, also on Friday night. I think that is going to maybe end up being, knowing what her potential probably is, where her ceiling probably is. I think that might be the stealth move that a lot of people probably didn't notice as a headline from night one that I think could prove to be big in the end. I think it's good for her.
So here's something I'm wondering, because WWE is really good about for one thing they are really good about is keeping couples together. I think that like so I see the Street Profits. I have not yet been drafted, but are eligible for drafts as of
That's a perfect segue, my friend. That's a perfect segue into expectations for Monday. Now that we know what happened on Friday night, Monday night. You're right. I think Street Profits, they got to go to the Smackdown, don't they? Because they're in that draft pool that we'll be looking at tomorrow night.
And they are the Raw Tag Team Champions, right?
Between those two things, that I have myself 5 bullet points here of things I'm expecting for tomorrow night, and you definitely picked one that I picked as well. I don't know how they don't. Maybe you decide that, okay, one set of champions now will be known as the Raw champions, and now you guys are the SmackDown champions, and they resolve it that way. But there's no point in having 2 tag team champs on the same brand. And I think for, like you noted, personal reasons, that it just makes sense to keep Montel Ford with his real life wife,
right,
Bianca Belair, by moving them to SmackDown. So I think that's one of the things that we can expect from tomorrow night.
And just following along those lines, we got Aleister Black and Zelina Vega. Still, it looks like still on SmackDown, but eligible for draft tomorrow night. I think if one of them moves, they both move.
But they're both still on Raw, actually.
Yeah, I'm sorry. They're both on Raw. My bad. But I think if one of them moves, they both move. But does Zelina Vega still have her stable of sexy men at this point? What's going on with them? Aren't they breaking up here? Didn't somebody go somewhere? Let's see. Humberto Carrillo, am I saying that right? And Angel Garza are both still on SmackDown. But what about
Raw?
Yes, Raw. What about Andrade? Is he bounced yet?
No, but he will be eligible. And from everything that I have learned or read is that they are intent on breaking that team up. So him being moved to SmackDown tomorrow night would probably be something that I think we could also expect. I mean, Raw is a 3-hour show. So if you look at the pool of talent that they have that are eligible for the draft, they're definitely keeping held more back for tomorrow night than what we've already got. So they still have plenty of room for moves and maybe even some of the bigger surprises still to come tomorrow evening. I think the Street Profits is definitely one of those that'll happen. Doug, with their tag team titles being lost on Friday night, I expect that the short-lived combo of Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro, that's one of my predictions, is another group that's likely to be split, probably to end up on different brands. Maybe one of them stays SmackDown and the other goes to Raw to just sort of separate that tag team. Similarly, I think that the Iconics, since they recently broke up, they had to break up in storyline. They had to break up because they lost the match. It wouldn't surprise me to see them now be split onto different brands so that they can get away from the gravity pull of each other and see what they can do on their own. Anything else that you can think of big for tomorrow? Because the others I have are more just like fantasy, like shock and surprise kind of big moves. But those are logical moves I can see happening very easily.
Yeah, but let me just say I see no reason to break the Iconics up. That didn't need. I mean, if they want to give one of them a singles push, the other could have been moved to a support role. They didn't need to break up the Iconics. I like the Iconics together.
Okay, here's another way you can go with that. And I thought about this too. What if, because of the draft and different GMs, different rules apply, they both get drafted to the other brand? And
yes,
hey, turns out contractually you had to break up, but that's Raw rules, and now you're on SmackDown, and that's a way to bring the team back together. That's another way that they could go with it. I thought about.
I hadn't thought about that yet, but because wrestling, you guys can be a tag team again. Because I really think if they want to push one over the other, that's great. But just move the other into support role. Have them be the corner person for the other one, and just keep those girls together because they have such a great real life story. Coming up from Australia as far back as high school, wanting to be WWE superstars. I mean, there's too much great storyline there to push. Just keep pushing that on through, and to break it up, I think you're losing an opportunity there.
How about big moves? Because they got to have something big up their sleeves, like they did with the New Day breakup and Seth, his big move. They did that on Friday. I'm, again, just fantasy booking here, but as far as big moves that I think that they might try, I think that you could possibly see like a Randy Orton get drafted to SmackDown to get another main event level person over there. And they can do it because they've done these sorts of things in the past where they do some sort of stipulation where, you have to finish out your obligations. So he still has his Drew McIntyre match at Hell in a Cell at the end of the month. But at this point, as many times as we predicted that Randy's going to win that belt and he hasn't, I don't see that happening. So I think this is going to be the blow off to the feud. So I can see them having a, stipulation of, now you got this Hell in a Cell match and it's your last chance. If you don't win the Universal Championship and stay on the brand as the Universal Champion, you've been drafted to the other show, and they move him to SmackDown.
So I think the biggest and probably wackiest thing WWE could do is to draft Bray Wyatt to SmackDown, but draft the Fiend.
Hey,
I think that would be the biggest, wackiest WTF moment ever if Bray Wyatt stays on SmackDown, but the Fiend gets drafted to Raw.
Considering that, I mean, I would probably on that idea normally, but considering the logic holes that they had already, I actually like that move.
I mean, it's 2020. Anything's going to happen. I'm just waiting for alien overlords to show up at this point anyway. So why not draft the Fiend to one and keep Bray on the other?
He is undrafted. It is very possible that that he does move. But if he does, obviously Alexa Bliss has to be drafted as well because that's just getting started and you're not going to, break that up just yet. I think they'll attempt to shock somebody just like they did on Friday by like, whoa, Lars Sullivan. I mean, somebody we haven't thought of in a while. I think that they'll have some sort of return or somebody coming back from injury or storyline retreat or what have you, just so they can shock us with, look who's back, and he's just been drafted to Raw, or something along those lines. So my pick for that, I think maybe we see someone like a Sonya Deville, who, like you said earlier, storyline purposes, she is not under contract, but what if they bring her back or she shows back up and it's, hey, here's this loophole. Yes, you had a loser leave WWE, but that only applied to SmackDown. And so now you're a member of Raw, and there she is, built-in feud with Mandy, who just recently moved to Raw.
Because again, you have the copy paste Control V, Control C with Mandy there. Oh, look, they're both on Raw now. Yeah, that could work. That could work. But,
so,
are there any big names that could possibly show up on Raw that are currently out?
Honestly, the biggest I could think of, and it is a possibility since, we are getting close to Royal Rumble season. It may be a little too soon for this, and I don't know where he is in his injury or recovery, but the biggest name I can think of out there right now that's still hurt, but could come back are, well, two. Both of them really part-time wrestlers, but you got Daniel Bryan and Edge, which are two big names that aren't done in the business yet, but Bryan healing up and taking some paternity leave, and Edge up from his injury. Honestly, they've both been gone long enough that those could be some much bigger names than Lars Sullivan, obviously, while not nearly the surprise.
I don't know. Lars Sullivan was pretty shocking to me to see that name come. I'm scrolling down through here.
I can't imagine there's a lot of Lars Sullivan fans, but as far as like shock content goes, like who had given him a second thought in ages?
Right, the second thought, or hold on. Let me see what this is.
And folks, while Doug's looking at that, I will say that that is pretty much the coverage that we have of night one of the draft. Obviously, night two is going to bring the most surprises and the most still yet to come. But as far as for what is to come, we're not done with the draft on the Two Bros Wrestling Show. And we'll, at the end of tonight's broadcast here in a few minutes, we'll tell you a little bit about what we're going to do next week. Don't want to spoil that. But, Doug, if you're ready to move on to the big finish, let's just move on to the big finish.
I am ready. Hold on. Let me bring up the banner. Big finish. Boom. I got nothing to add to the big finish this week, brother. It is all you. I think you did this last time I was, I was actually present for the show, that you did all the heavy lifting again. So, yeah, my match of the night, my embarrassment of the night was something with WWE, and my match of the night was something on AEW. I'm sure it was. I'm sure that's how it went. So.
Actually, you're not far off from what I got here. Embarrassment of the week. This is one of those, Doug, that I think that you and I both could have had as embarrassments of the week for a while now, and we just have shown some restraint in not doing so. And honestly, I did it on purpose. I have not mentioned Retribution on here intentionally. I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt to let it play out long enough for me to have an opinion on it. I didn't want a knee-jerk reaction because, in general, I like factions. I like the
factions.
Yeah.
It's one of the many reasons why I love AEW, because there's so many factions in AEW.
And I even like invasion angles, even though they so often turn out wrong. I mean, I know it's easy for some folks to look back and think, oh gosh, that Nexus thing, ended poorly, because it did, but it was when Nexus first started, the idea of these young kids coming out of NXT to demolish the establishment, that was really cool. And then they didn't give them the victories they deserved, and they watered it down. And the WCW invasion storyline, those first couple of nights, the hair would stand up on your arm if you were a wrestling fan of both brands. It just went off the rails. So with this, I'm like, okay, it didn't start the best for me, but let's see if they can salvage it. Because you started hearing the rumors of some of the folks involved, and okay, I'm just going to see. There's possibilities here. Dominik Dijakovic is amazing. He's got size. He's got talking ability. He's got aerial ability. And then I think now, though, Doug, we've gone far enough that we could say this is a convoluted mess. It's my embarrassment of the week. It's been kind of shaky from day one as to, it starts out like these guys are on all shows and they're attacking WWE, and then they're just exclusive to Raw, and they have Raw contracts.
Who signed these anarchists to an exclusive contract?
Yeah.
What anarchist is like, oh yes, I will sign a contract to exclusively appear on your show?
And Doug, this is something I didn't mention in the news item, but is because I saved it honestly for this embarrassment of the week. But Mercedes Martinez, who is a member, is apparently no longer a member. She's not showing up in any of the photos they've taken recently, and they have very stealthily moved her back on the WWE website to the NXT roster. And so, reasons unknown, apparently she is now out of the group. without so much as a word. And then you got Mustafa Ali, who I like. I like Mustafa from the get-go, but as far as the surprise leader, that's a head scratcher. You didn't see it coming, so I guess you could say, well, that's a surprise. But then the second question you ask yourself is, now why again?
It's because it goes with all pop and no reason. You do it to pop the audience to get this short-term win, but I mean, for the long term, it doesn't make sense. And
I mean, in the case of Nexus, like we mentioned earlier, these are young kids trying to make a name for themselves by putting over the old guys that won't get out of the way. The WCW WWE invasion storyline that wrote itself. I mean, you know what the issue there is. What does Retribution stand? What's their issue? What are they mad about? Like, exactly. I mean, they're literally rebels without a cause. Just the whole thing is a mess, and I hate it for Mustafa. I mean, again, I like him, very talented, but let's build him up to a level where him being the head of a group meant something. Because honestly, he's been gone for so long. What does him being the leader of Retribution mean? Why should we feel strongly about it one way or the other? I mean, that literally is just the definition of shoulder shrug.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if they've covered this, but does this tie back into the whole hacker thing? Because it seemed there were a lot of hints in that the hacker was going to be Mustafa. So does this all? I mean, again, I've been out for 2 weeks, so I don't know.
If you've been watching
together,
no, it would make no more sense. You've just saved yourself.
Okay.
You're not missing anything. You pretty much got the entirety of it.
So tell me this: what should I watch this week when I'm trying to get caught up on this week? You know, real life allowing it. What do I need to go out and watch this week? What's your pick of the week?
Well, my match of the week, honestly, the whole Takeover pay-per-view that reviewed here. So as the Lone Bro Wrestling Show last Sunday. I give it an A, man. I give that whole show an A, beginning to end. There's just one match that was okay, and it was still good, and everything else was great, to be honest. And my match of the week came from the Takeover. I think that definitely go see Santos Escobar defending the NXT Championship. Okay. Against Isaiah Swerve Scott. You have your mat-based wrestling, you have your high-flying. It's like they had 3 matches wrapped into one. Nice. Hopefully they continue with the feud since the belt didn't change hands. That maybe this is just the beginning of the chase, because they had an excellent contest. Definitely my match of the week. And I will say then, Doug, if there's one more thing you should watch since you didn't get a pick this week, since you didn't see anything, I would say NXT UK. Watch A-Kid versus Morgan Webster. They're doing right now on NXT UK, since they restarted, they're doing something called the Heritage Cup tournament. And I love tournaments anyway, but this is based on Heritage Cup rules, which apparently is a round system. It's whoever gets 2 falls, but the matches are held within 3-minute rounds, however many rounds it takes to get 2 falls. And these two just had an excellent old school wrestling contest. I mean, you talk about, it was reversals and chain wrestling, and it was great. So those two would be probably my 2 favorite matches of the week.
All right.
My third, if I had to pick a third, I'll use this as my segue for my performers of the week. Okay.
All right.
So my performer of the week was originally going to be one person, but I had to expand it to 2 because everyone has a dance partner when you wrestle. So on AEW this week, Doug, you'll like it because it's AEW related. So this is one you got to see. But the TNT title changed hands. It reverted back. Cody Rhodes won the
back.
Cody's back, man. And he's got dark hair. Dude's got dark hair.
What?
And, yeah. He's not blonde anymore. He's back dark-headed. He had his rematch against Brody Lee, and they absolutely tore the house down. I'm not a fan of the Dark Order concept overall. I just that's never done it for me. I liked Brody Lee when I thought that, okay, he's wasted in WWE. This will be a good signing for them. Him as the head of Dark Order might actually salvage that. All this is good. And as you and I complained, Doug, when we did a AEW pay-per-view review back in the day, they pretty much built him up and then jobbed him out in his first big program.
Yes.
After then, he's just been treading water. To me, this was the best he's looked since he's come to AEW. The match itself was absolutely the best it looked. It was an old school, Dusty would be proud dog collar match. and they were brutal to each other. Greg Valentine, dude, was sitting at ringside because of the classic dog collar match. It's AEW. You know how they do heritage stuff. They played that up so well. And Brody Lee was going to be my performer of the week because to me, finally, dude, you lived up to your potential. Right. It's a shame they took the belt off of you, but maybe that means better things for you to come because you just salvaged your run in AEW. You look legit again. But then I had to put Cody Rhodes in as my performer of the week. I was just going to give it to Brody for his performance. But, dude, after the match, Cody cut a promo that you're not supposed to cut anymore. It's that white meat babyface promo that his dad would have done back in the day. I mean, it was all, I know that some people want me to take a different path, but I'm sticking with you all, to the fan. And they're going nuts. And I'm thinking that would have been crapped on if anyone else would have tried that in 2020. Wrestling fans don't buy that goody stuff, except when it comes with such believability and passion. You could close your eyes and you could channel the old man at that point.
Right.
Man, Dusty would have to be looking down and be so proud. That was the son of a plumber. The son of a plumber there, absolutely going old school NWA, Mid-Atlantic era, 1983 babyface promo. And it was just, as an old school fan, it was beautiful to watch and it elevated everything else that had just happened. So the two of them together, performer of the week. Doug, I know you'll catch up on AEW, but that is
not that I won't binge AEW to catch up. WWE, I will like watch other shows like ours and watch other wrestling news shows to get caught up. And I probably won't, other than the matches you've highlighted for me and talked about tonight as far as WWE goes. But AEW, of course, I mean, I am Dynamite Doug. I'm going to binge what I've missed and get caught back up to get back up to speed. But it just makes me feel good inside to hear that, these things are going on, because I really think Cody is the heart of AEW. I mean, and like you say, he's the son of a plumber's son. Dusty's promos come through him so often, and I really like Brody Lee too. But I think the Dark Order is better as a comedy act on being the elite than they are a serious threat on actual AEW TV.
But 100% agree with you. 100% agree with you.
But Brody Lee, I think could be something in the future, and I think there's still potential to turn the Dark Order around. At least I hope there is.
There is too, because there's some talented people involved, and I'd like to see it go somewhere else. And much like Retribution, talented people involved, you want to give them the benefit of the doubt. But thus far, both of them could use a lot of work.
Yeah.
That's the week that was. You want to give the folks out there a preview of what we're going to be doing next week on a very special edition to the Two Bros Wrestling Show?
We're going to be following up on a week of drafts because we have Raw tomorrow night, and I'm sure there will be an additional supplemental draft after Raw that we need to do some coverage of, and we will just follow up and talk about that because we are having 2 beautiful weeks of coverage of Raw and WWE Raft. Well, that's the Raw draft. Now it's just shortened to the Raft.
If Doug's rafting next week, it looks like I'll be alone, folks. Okay.
I had a rough couple of weeks. I'm hitting the water.
Folks, next week we are going to be doing a mock draft here on the Two Bros Wrestling Show. So, we're going to not just cover what happens on the draft. We're going to show how you get it right, because we're going to do our own as if none of this ever happened. One of us is going to be the Raw of SmackDown. One of us is going to be the general manager, rather, of SmackDown and the GM of Raw. We're going to be rivals next week. We're going to be executives next week, going at each other and picking a roster that's going to outperform the other. So you join us, pick with us, let us know who did the best. And in the meantime, Doug, I think we've let the folks watch some wrestling this week and hopefully catch back up with the Two Bros.
Hopefully so. I hope to get caught back up on wrestling and be able to be a little bit more informed next week. Thank you, brother, for covering while I've been out for IRL issues. And I've been Doug.
I've been Kevin.
This has been Two Bros Wrestling Show. Take care of yourselves and each other. Peace out, everybody.